all these different things. So they're maybe not used to paying a fee because they charge for free, or it was a scenario where the financial advisor just works solely on commission. So you'll find more often than not, when you're straightforward and upfront with them, they're going to be fine with it, and they're going to understand, and they're going to appreciate that. And you just got to get comfortable with that. Yeah, maybe the people that you worked with before, maybe they're not the right fit, but you can find those new people, and you're going to set yourself up. It's going to be very transparent, and you're going to get there. And you have to talk about it right away, because if they're not a good fit and you wait to the end, just think about how much time you wasted.
I want to introduce you to a very, very special guest. Steve Taylor is an attorney and certified financial planner and the founder of Merited Wealth, LLC, a state of Florida registered investment advisor located in Miami, Florida. Prior to founding Merited Wealth, Steve was a board-certified elder law attorney and chair of the Special Needs Trust Committee for the Florida Bar. His sister company is Merited Benefits and focuses on group insurance and 401k benefits. Steve and his wife Susie appeared on the ABC show Shark Tank in 2013 as creators of the Ultimate Bib. Steve is a past president of the Miami chapter of the Financial Planning Association. He's also created a podcast called Do It For Yourself, where he interviews entrepreneurs to learn about their journey and lessons learned, and creates a series on financial planning topics such as applying for, getting into and paying for college, and long-term care planning. Steve, a very, very warm welcome to our podcast. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Nina. I'm really excited to be here. I really appreciate you inviting me.
So we're going to be talking all things mindset as it applies to financial advisors. So let's start with your own journey. Can you tell us a little bit about how you came to be doing what you're doing and how mindset has played a role in your success?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my path is a little different than many other advisors out there. I say, I've been off and on kind of working at this for over 2 decades. But where I started out, where I was, is coming out of law school. I was practicing law, and I was not enamored with the practice. Right, it wasn't really that exciting to me. I had some friends that were in the financial planning, quote unquote, at that time. They were primarily just at insurance companies. But then it really got me interested in it, and I started to work some. I joined an insurance company. I went and got my certification as a certified financial planner, and really started trying to grow that business. But at the same time, really, when I was starting out, it's a challenge, right? It's a struggle to get started in this business. So I gravitated a little bit more towards practicing law at that time, which took me on that path for a while, before I was able to really refocus on this about 10 years ago. And really the mindset, I think to myself 20 years ago, like that kid out there, I was very confident. I was very certain of the things that I knew, right? Even though there's so much I didn't know. And I was very much out there trying to work in all these different areas and learn through the process. And, really the sales and going out there and talking with people, and that follow up and that follow through and that dealing with, rejection, that was a challenge, right? That was a challenge to get through it. But I really had a strong, core belief that I could make this happen, because I've seen other people do it. I knew people that were doing it out there. And so I was really trying to kind of commit it to the process, learning as I would go. And my mindset was really, just listen, keep your head down, keep doing these things to be right, and the results will follow. And so that's really, my main mindset in starting out and growing this business.
Amazing. And you said that you had this core belief that you can make it happen. That is such an important part of it, isn't it? Because some financial advisors look at other people. You looked at other people and thought, if they can do it, then I can do it. There has to be a path, because there is a way that they've made it this far. And other financial advisors can look at their peer group. They will call them competitors maybe, and say, well, they can do it, but they've got something that I haven't got. They've got something special that I'm lacking, and I can't do what they're doing. So this comes down to our beliefs, doesn't it? What we believe is possible and true for us.
Yeah.
So, what would you say to those financial advisors who are listening into this podcast and thinking, well, that's all very well for Steve because he had this core belief that he could do it? What would you say to those who have the opposite belief that they can't do it? They can only get so far in life.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So as I was going out there, I guess one part of this was that when I would see other people doing it and see what was out there, I would always think there's better ways to do this. I know I could see a better way to do it. The way I'm particularly being told to do or how I'm doing it doesn't sit right with me. And really, what I've learned so much, it was so important back then, and I think with so many people, that they lose the confidence on it, is I really had to get fine-tuned with my gut, my inner instinct and my feelings to say that, hey, listen, I know I may not be able to articulate it right now of why I can do it or why I see I can do it differently or why I can see it this, but my gut is telling me that I can, right? And it's kind of guiding and shaping me in those certain directions. So I'd say really, number one, the most important thing would be for all those other advisors out there, they're seeing other, people out there and saying maybe may not be able to do it. Listen to yourself, listen to your gut. What are you telling yourself? If you're thinking about it, you probably think you can do it. There's a feeling within you that's saying you can do it. And really the focus would be look to that, go to that, focus on that feeling. Why is it telling you to do it? Because yes, I looked and saw other people that were doing it and were successful, but that doesn't mean I had to do it the same way they're doing it. I needed to do it my own way, or really, I that was going to be a challenge. If I was too much trying to do it others people's way rather than my way, that was probably, number one, it's going to be, a lot harder. But number two, at the end of the day, if I do it that way, I'm going to end up with a business I don't really want because I was doing it their way. And honestly, that's what got me to leave the practice of law, right? When I was practicing law, I wasn't that interested. So that's what I'd say, is that, if you think you can do it, focus on your gut and then really focus on doing it your own way while learning from other people's way to make sure that that's going to give you the greatest chance of success is if you do it your own way, because then you'll fully be invested and believe in it.
Yes, because often we do things that we think other people want us to do, or we do it another way because you said someone else is doing it that way. So when you do it, following your gut, doing it your own way, then it aligns with your strengths, doesn't it? With your skill set. And you feel more on purpose and more motivated and more passionate about it. You said that you got fine-tuned with your gut. How did you do that? Was that taking some quiet time? Were you asking, was it self-inquiry questions? What do I want? How do I want my practice to look? How do I want my life to look? How did you do that? Because that's something not many people take the time to do.
Yeah, yeah. So that's a great question. So really, a part of it is the initial part is, hey, something's off, right? Something's not right. Something's feeling weird. And you could think about it and you can go out and do your research and reading, but really the most impactful, Nina, and I've always done this as part of my practice, and now I really open it up for other people to come to me. I would go talk to people. I would go talk to them in a little setting. Hey, can I buy you a drink? Or, hey, can we have breakfast? And really just start going through it and talking to them and get their perspective, because you'll be amazed. You'll be amazed at what you hear. Like, for example, if you're at a small little presentation, someone gives a presentation on something, you're like, oh, well, there's bits and pieces of that I liked. A lot of it I didn't like. When you go and reach out and sit down and talk with them separately, individually, you're going to be open to a whole different thought process of theirs. And you're going to see, okay, maybe what they put out there and put out to the world isn't necessarily everything that they're doing, right? And that's even more prevalent in today's social media world. But that's really, I continue. It's like being a lifetime learner and really just having conversations like we're having, to say, hey, tell me more.
Wonderful. So it's going out and asking questions.
Yeah.
And finding what works for them and what works for you. I think conversations are the heartbeat of being an entrepreneur. It's where you talk to people, you talk to, customers, prospects, your peer group, to mentors, and all of that is such an important part. Which brings us to sales. Sales is an area that a lot of financial advisors hate doing. They hate selling themselves. They hate marketing their services. They'd rather be in an office, sort of anonymous, doing great work, serving their clients. But getting the leads can be very, very stressful and challenging for some of them. How did you come to terms with selling and marketing yourself? Was it something that came to you naturally, or was it something that you had to really work at? And, what role did your mindset play in sales and marketing for you?
Yeah. That's a great question. Like I said, I started at a insurance company many years ago, and they have a whole technique and right, they guide you in the sales and everything through it. And which is great training, even though I knew I didn't want to sell insurance products, right? So I'd say number one, when you're going and thinking about sales, it's kind of what are you selling, right? For me, when I was starting out at an insurance company selling these, life insurance was the answer to, all that ails you. I didn't believe in that. I didn't agree with that. Right. So I had a really problematic time selling that. And it came across the people that I was out there, talking to. But then when I parlayed that and I went into the law as a lawyer, what was I selling? I was selling me. I'm selling it advice. It's something intangible. Right. So if you focus on what you're selling is you, and you're selling that advice, and the services just come along for it, it becomes much easier to go through that, right? Because you're just saying, hey, listen, this is what I know. This is what I think could help you, and let me share this with you. So it doesn't feel like sales anymore, right? It seems like education, and that's really been the mantra of both as a lawyer and now, financial advisor for me. It was selling through education. Right, I would write papers, or I would give speeches, and just in a really educating fashion. And then for me, like you mentioned, leads, right? And this is, once again, I want to go back to this. A lot of people will say, "Hey, these are the things you should do to get clients." Right? You'll hear people that are selling a lead service. Hey, you sign up for us, right? Buy our leads, or you need to do events. Do events for people or seminars. All these different things. Well, let me tell you, Nina, I did one seminar, and my mom showed up. That was it,
Did she buy?
right? She did. She was a hard sale. But the people who I was going after, they don't come to seminars, right? That's not how they do it. So really, how I've always done it is just through networking, getting to know people in a very informal fashion, or maybe in informal settings, right? And once again, it's get to know the person first, get to know them, and then develop your own routine of how to say, hey, listen, Nina, it's great to know you. We've known each other for a while now. I heard you mention the other day you were having some concerns, the stock market, concerns you, or, your mortgage is getting out of control. Listen, as a part of my business, what I do as a financial advisor, those are the kind of items that I address and work with clients. I'd love, no pressure, to sit down with you and just talk about it sometime if you ever have the need, right? And if you do it that way, it's much easier. You're not selling, right? And that's really to develop that method of just, it's conversational. You're looking for an opportunity to sit down with them, to educate them, and then the business would come after. That's always felt, right for me. There's lots of people that are hardcore salespeople with life insurance, and they do very well. And if that works for them, great. That's just that wasn't worked for me, and probably, to your question, for a lot of other advisors out there, they don't like that either.
Yes, absolutely. Because they feel, what I keep hearing again and again, working with clients, financial advisor clients, is that they have a real fear of rejection. They
Mm.
hate getting a no. So they'll do everything they can to avoid getting a no. And if you're going to avoid getting a no, it means you're going to avoid reaching out. You're going to avoid having calendar appointments set up. You're not going to want to put yourself in that situation. But if you don't have leads, if you don't have conversations, you're not going to have clients. So some of them are just treading water at the moment and hoping, passively they'll get clients coming in. How do you deal with no's? How do you face up to a no? Do you take it personally, or do you move past it very quickly? What's your mindset around that?
Yeah. So early on, right, when I'm starting out in the business, when you hear a no, it's devastating, right? Like they're rejecting me, like me as a person. They're letting me down, right? But then as you go on and you go through it, you learn they're not rejecting you. And no does not mean, first of all, no forever. It might mean not now, or there's plenty of other reasons that are out there. So you don't focus on that, right? And I think a lot of one of the speeches out there, or somebody has a saying that says, right, no is just what they say before they say yes, right? So, and it's kind of, that's kind of an entry point in a conversation. And if you really stick at it and go through it, many times you'll find people that, have said no initially, but then eventually say yes and become clients. And there's a little element of that to overcoming objections. That's a sales ploy though, right? Like, oh, tell me all the reasons why so I can take it out there. But really it's like, okay, listen, I understand. Hey, do you mind if I have an email list, right? That I have, can I put you on that? Can I put you on my social media? Or you'll continue to sell, to see the person in whatever format it might be. It's really, you can't let it knock you down. It's not a no against you. It's just a not now, or I'm not in the market for what you're offering, or I have someone else at it. It really should be a non-factor, because just the more no's you get, it just makes it more value when you get to that right yes. Because remember, you're trying to find that right connection. Right. And some of them might say yes, could be a really terrible client for you. Right. But you went too hardcore. You did all those sales techniques, and then you got somebody on board that you don't really want as a client. So yeah, it's not the focus on that, and not that it's not a rejection of you. Right. It's not a rejection of necessarily, anything that you're trying to offer to them. It's just like, not now. Timing's not right. There's many other reasons that you'll come to find out.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. One of my biggest breakthroughs I've had is to stop taking things personally. Once I stopped taking things personally, I realized, oh, they're not rejecting me. I'm not up for rejection. I don't put myself out there to be rejected. The word rejection doesn't exist in my vocabulary. As you said, it's not the right fit. It's not the right time for them. And that's fine. And I say no to people as well. And that's all good. And then I extended that into my private life, friends, relationships. And it's incredible. It's like you put on this cloak of invincibility, and things just slide off you, where before I used to mull over these things for days and weeks. And I do feel, as an entrepreneur, being able to easily handle rejection or not see rejection is a big part of growing and scaling our businesses. But because before you cannot scale your practice until you've dealt with that.
Yeah, and it's our choice too, Nina, right? It's like, yes, we're asking them to become a client. We want them to kind of choose us, but we want to choose them also, right? So if you set up your process and procedure, like mine is, if you go to my website, it's like I start, hey, let's just have a conversation, right? Let's just have an initial conversation, see if you're a good fit for us and we're a good fit for you. If you feel like you have choice in this also, right? Listen, if you think that everyone that says yes, you have to make them a client, please rethink that, right? You don't want that, right? But make it that you have a choice in this also. So it's kind of a give and take, and more so, hopefully it'll make you feel more comfortable also. And that, yeah, it's not a negative, anything negative upon you.
And it seems that networking, chatting comes very easily to you. What about for people it doesn't come easily to? They're walking into a room full of strangers is their biggest nightmare. They don't find it easy to make small talk or casually tell people what they do. It just feels very forced. It feels very salesy, very unnatural to them. What would you say to them about being able to have these conversations and networking in a way that feels good to them?
Yeah. So what I would say, and my biggest advice there is, I don't like necessarily very big rooms as well. Like certain chambers of commerce like that with so many people. Someone walks up to you and handles your business card. I would say make the room small. And what I mean by that is, when you go in there, start looking for people or characteristics of people that you might identify with them. Maybe somebody has a certain type of clothing on, or sunglasses, right? Or anything like that. Like, and other people, just, you walk around, and when you're looking around, they may look at you and give an inviting glance, or like an open glance, and they're open to have that conversation. And then when you go in there, it's not about business. It's, hey, what's your name? My name's here. Hey, do you live around here? Or what? Go into non-business conversations, and you'll find that that's much easier, right? And now there are some people that will be the hardcore ones, say, hey, what do you do? What are you here for? And you're going to quickly look at them and slide on by, right? But there's plenty of other people like you, and I promise, even if you're an introvert, if your goal is to go and just make one good, meaningful connection, then it's a massive success. And don't look at it like you have to meet everybody. So it's shrink the room, find those people that you think you can connect with, and you will connect with, because you do connect with people already. If you go to other sporting events or concerts or whatever, movies, whatever other things you like doing, you're going to start, connecting with those people. So in this group, you're making it small and you're looking to say, hey, what kind of interests or activity do we have in common? And go to that, talk about that. And that makes it, I think, will make it a lot more doable and easier to navigate.
That's great advice. At the end of the day, they're human beings, just like you. I mean, no one is better than anyone else. I think it's also part of it is your own attitude. When you walk into the room, you see people, you may look at someone and think, or talk to someone and think, oh, they're much more successful than me, and immediately feel inferior to them and think, well, why would they be interested in someone small like me? So it's really feeling as like equal to everyone else, and knowing you have your own skill set and everyone else has their own skill set, and feeling, you are knowing you are as good as anyone you would talk to, no matter what the size of their business is, how many offices they have, how big their team is.
And another tip I would have there also, Nina, in those situations, and you can find them, and I use this a lot even now, when you go and you meet with someone in the first like minute or so, if they come up and they're solely talking about themselves and what they do, and really just, even if I talk back and forth, it's all about them, and they never stop and say, well, what about you? I like to know about you. Let me tell you, I walk away from them immediately. And they don't even notice that you're kind of blowing them off because they're so self-involved. So if you kind of have that test and to see if the person will slow down and allow you to talk and be about yourself, you'll find a connection there right away, because that's going to be a person that's truly interested in other people and that you're going to connect with in a meaningful way. So try that. There's so many of the other ones that just go really quick and talking about themselves, and you can literally turn around and walk away from them in mid-sentence. They don't even notice. So,
Yes, I've
try to
come
stay away
across
from
many
those
people
people.
like that. Yeah, I think we all
Yeah.
have. One thing that I found very interesting with your website is that you show all your fees. Everything's very transparent. Everything's very upfront. There are some financial advisors who charge fees and some who don't. Some who are happy to charge fees, increase their fees, no problem. And others who struggle to start charging fees, or once they do, to increase them. What's your thinking around why some financial advisors are able to charge fees easily and others struggle to do that?
I think a big part of it is that so many financial advisors come from an environment of where everything was commission based, and they never had to talk to people about what they're making, and clients never asked, right? And that was the way that they came about it. So that's how they kind of just got used to doing the business, and they felt that that was the way to do it. When you want to go towards, really the fee discussion, listen, there's nothing wrong necessarily with commission-based products, but many times it doesn't align with what you're trying to do. It doesn't align with an ongoing relationship, right? It doesn't align necessarily that, just because do you have to give the client this product to achieve the advice that you're giving them? No, right? It's too out of line. But when you go to fees, what's really so important about it, and once again, it's important to do it right up front, is that you're going to start saying, hey, listen, this is what I cost, right? This is the value I feel I bring. I'm going to articulate the value. And you're going to know right away if they're a bad fit. If they start scoffing at your fees right away, you're not going to waste any more time with them, right? But when you bring up the fees, really the other, thing you need to say right away, and our fees are this, and this is the value that we bring, right? We do XYZ, we do tax planning, retirement planning, long-term care planning, da 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 da. This is our process. You don't, you don't just bring up your fee in a vacuum, right? You kind of show them what they're going to be getting. It was easy for me as a lawyer when I was doing my wills and trusts, because people kind of knew what they were getting. They were getting a set of legal documents to put together. So I didn't have to sell the documents that much, and the fee, they expected to pay a fee. But in financial services, people are used to, you go out there, you look online, hey, come invest with us. It costs you nothing, right? And all these different things. So they're maybe not used to paying a fee because they charge for free, or it was a scenario where the financial advisor just works solely on commission. So you'll find more often than not, when you're straightforward and upfront with them, they're going to be fine with it, and they're going to understand, and they're going to appreciate that. And you just got to get comfortable with that. Yeah. Maybe the people that you worked with before, maybe they're not the right fit. but you're going to find those new people, and you're going to set yourself up. It's going to be very transparent, and you're going to get there. And you have to talk about it right away, because if they're not a good fit and you wait to the end, just think about how much time you wasted.
Absolutely. There is that link, isn't there, on the value side, that you have to believe in your value first before you can share it confidently and with certainty with a prospect. So for those financial advisors who don't really get their own value, they question the value. Is the client going to want to pay that? They don't want to pay that. They go get it free somewhere else. Is there value, enough value to charge a fee? What would you say about that, and believing and really owning your value that you're giving to the prospect?
Yeah, so a lot of us devalue. I think it's kind of human nature to not place much value on the stuff you know already, right? You say, I know that. That's not a big deal, right? That's not that complicated out there. So you think it's not worth much. But if you bring an idea or a thought to someone else that doesn't know it, how much is that worth? I started out at a big accounting firm many, many years ago, and they had these ideas. They'd say, hey, listen, we have this idea that's going to apply to this particular type of client. Go out and find them. They already worked out the idea, right? The work was done. They had the intellectual capital, all the stuff. And they would typically save the client like $500,000 in taxes. And they would say, okay, we're going to charge them $200,000 for that, right? They've already done it. They've already known it. There's nothing new. But to that client, there was tremendous value, right? Because they saved them $500,000 in taxes. If you tell someone who's not contributing to an IRA to contribute to an IRA, it's going to lower your taxes, you have saved them money. There is that value. So you really have to understand the advice that you're giving. It's going to have an impact, and understand that the actual dollar amount, and quantify that. Show that to clients. Right? Charge a fee for a plan, or even if you don't charge a fee for a plan, show them, the value of that advice. If you know it and they don't, it's valuable. Or if they even know it, but they're not doing it, it's valuable for you to get them to do it. Right? So I think that's really the part, is to understand what you're bringing is value. It saves people money, and believe in it. And just because you've done it 100 times doesn't make it less valuable.
That's a really great point. We do underestimate our expertise and our skill set. When we think about it, we've trained many years for it. We've spent a lot of money. We've invested in ourselves. So we're bringing all of that to the table, aren't we? When we say this fee is only this little amount, and for that you get all of this, and showing them, demonstrating it, even if you have to write it out for them, that's a great way of demonstrating value. Because sometimes we assume people can see the value, but they can't. They won't know it until you show it to them. You have to actually demonstrate it to them. That's a really great point.
Yeah.
Now, there's one subject which I love asking a question about, and this is setbacks. We all encounter setbacks. Being an entrepreneur is a bit like being on a roller coaster, isn't it? Sometimes there's huge highs, huge lows. When you have a setback, how do you deal with it? How do you get past it?
Yeah, that's the key, right? It's about being resilient and get through that. I will tell you, and I think back to when I was younger. Listen, all of these mindset things that we talk about, and even when you improve it, still old habits will sneak in, right? And you got to get through those. But simply when I was starting out, or getting out, out of the box on these things, and a setback would happen. Truly, to start, you don't think about it. You don't focus on it. You move forward. Okay, next, right? That one knows to another one. You can't stew in it. You got to keep moving. You can't really focus in, other than maybe, listen, if it's a big setback, what I like to do, think about, is that you take a day. Take a day. Okay, what happened? What could I have done differently? What can I learn from it? Write it down. And then day two, it's over, right? And you really, and more than anything, people say, well, how can you do that? You forced yourself not to. Don't think of it, right? Don't focus on that, right? Because that's the issue. The mindset is that you focus on it, that inner loop inside our head of the negativity will continue to come out. Don't focus on it, put it down, because like you said, the entrepreneur's journey is so freaking hard. It's probably 80% no and 80% failure before there is success. So the key is, you simply can't focus on it. for very long. Give yourself some time, debrief if it's a big setback, but then move forward. And that's really, the only way. Now, don't be impractical, right? Don't put yourself or your family into financial ruin. You have to be realistic at a certain point if something's happening. But if it's just mental, or it was just a simple no, or you spent a lot of time and it didn't happen, yeah, don't think about it very much.
I love what you say, that focus on it, but with asking questions. How can I do it better this time? What went wrong? What can I do that would make sure this doesn't happen again? Those are really powerful questions, because then you're taking all the learnings out of that situation and you can apply them to the next time. The other thing that you said, which was really important, well, you didn't say it, but you implied it, that you don't use it as an excuse to beat yourself up and say, oh, well, just proves I'm a loser. There I go again. Another big, mistake I made, another failure. So we don't use it to take meanings about how useless we are. We just say, okay, what can I get out of this? And then move on quickly. It's all about where we focus. Our focus, our attention is 100% the key to success. Because if we're focusing on thinking we're failures and that we're never going to get anywhere, then we're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah, Nina, and I think it's really a really important point to that one is that, listen, maybe in your business, maybe you're very resilient, right? And you don't take it personal, but there are going to be things in your personal life that you take personal, right? They're by definition, they're personal. And whatever those influences and those powers are in your life, you got to get rid of them. You got to get rid of them, right? You got to clean house. Like if you're going to go down that entrepreneurial journey, and this is what I say a lot of people, and I talk to a lot of people, that if you're married or you have children, you need to sit down and go through with them. Hey, listen, we're going down this journey. I need you on my side. This is going to be really, really hard. Something I really want to do. I'm going to come home. I'm going to be in bad moods and stuff like that. But I need you to be supportive, and you need to get them on your side, because I've been blessed with an extraordinarily supportive spouse. But I will tell you, and I'm not telling people to, out there and get divorced, but if your entrepreneurial journey, if your spouse is not behind it, I'm not going to say it's not going to work, but it's going to be 1,000 times more difficult for it to work. And it may work at the cost potentially of your marriage, right? In that scenario. So you got to really take that into account, and whatever negative factors are out there for you, get rid of them. If it's, if it's, once again, if it's a spouse, something like that, maybe you do it a different way, or you really get them involved in it, because if they're saying like, hey, I told you so, or I knew this, or why does that have to be so hard? Why did you do this? It's just going to be that much harder. So you got to get rid of the negative influences, and those that are closest to you, make sure they're on board, or else it's going to be monumentally more difficult.
Yeah, that's a really, really good tip. So I'd love to ask you this question around strategy. What is the one top tip you can share with our audience about how they can grow their practice? What is the number one thing?
So that's a great question. The number one thing to grow the practice, right? I'm always trying to think strategically, right? I'm very much, that's a skill probably many financial planners have. When you plan, you bring that together. I would say, as I'm thinking through it, that really it's focus on the process that you're going through rather than the results. And I got a good sales, a good mentor in the life insurance sales area, a friend to this day, right? He explained it, and I think about it as Lucille Ball, Lucy and Ethel were with a chocolate factory with a conveyor belt, right? And he says, you got to keep putting things on the top of your conveyor belt, opportunities, or else, to let them permeate and go through the cycle to be able to end up into a finished product there at the end. So, the strategy and the success, I would say, is you got to focus on your product, your process, keep putting opportunities out there, and focus on that activity and that process early on and pretty much throughout the time, rather than just the results, because that is what all of a sudden, if you focus on that, you're going to see the results are going to flow, right? You can't be too results oriented too early, or else it's going to stop you, right? It's going to slow you down. So I think that's the strategy, right? It's not results oriented, it's process oriented, and stick to your process. Because I would say you don't have to have the perfect process. People have their processes out there, but if you have a process that you've done your own research, you feel is going to work, and you commit to it, and you do it repeatedly over and over, it's going to produce results. Now, you may fine tune it over time, but it's going to produce results. So figure out a process and stick to it, and the results will come.
Wonderful. And it's actually very simple, isn't it? Find a process, do it consistently. Don't get distracted and start finding new shiny objects, because that's the thing. And we could have a very long conversation about that. Stick to one thing, try it, keep trying it, tweak it if you need to, see if it works. If it really doesn't work after you've done everything, then move on to something else, but stick to one thing at a time. It is doing the one thing, which we find so difficult because there are so many shiny things, new processes coming up, and try this method. And people are sending us stuff in our inbox every single day. It's having that very focused attention on the one thing and seeing it through, following through with it. It's actually very simple, but it seems so challenging to do.
Yeah. Yeah. We're all guilty of looking at those shiny objects. I love it. And sometimes I get, I've had people that said that I was guilty of that, but kind of how I do it is, I will look into the shiny object, but I will not change my process until I've really gone through it. And I think there might be some value in it. So, maybe these might go in conflict, but to say, be a lifetime learner, be curious, go find out about that stuff. But 9 out of 10 times for me, and you'll probably find that it's not worthwhile to implement, but it was still worth that time to just give it a little bit of investigation. But keep your process, don't disrupt it. Disrupt your process very, very slowly, right? Because once again, that conveyor belt, right? If you got to wait for things to come down, if you're continually changing up front, nothing's going to have time to come down.
Yes.
So let it, but on the side, you could be looking around at other conveyor belts or other items to say, hey, how can I improve this without stopping yours?
Exactly. And AI is a prime example. There are so many tools, new ones coming out every day. It could be a huge rabbit hole, gobble up your time. But if you just spend a little bit of time just researching it, you may be able to find something in there that can enhance your process that you're focusing on. It is a delicate balancing act, isn't it? It doesn't take too much attention away, but you're still using new things which come through. Fantastic. Thank you. This has been amazing. You've just really expanded my thinking around how mindset is such a key part of financial advisors. And I hope everyone who's been listening has found it very, very valuable. How can people find out more about you and the great work you're doing?
Yeah, I appreciate it, Nina. I've really enjoyed this conversation also. So our website is meritedwealth.com. You'll find a lot of information about me and our practice there. We're in LinkedIn, we're in Facebook, wherever it might be. And I'll put this offer out there. If there's any other financial advisors that listen to this, listen, if you want 15 minutes of time, I will give it to you. I will give to anybody that's interested in it, learning more, bettering themselves. I'll always give them 15 minutes because I was given 15 minutes many times back in the past. So if you want to reach out and anything I say, or you think of something I do, a question, or email me, I'm happy to do it. And just giving back. And many times I will do it because I promise I'll learn something from you as well.
That's very generous. Thank you. And also your podcast as well. So if anyone wants to go and listen to your podcast, do it yourself, do it for yourself, go along and listen to it because it's packed full of valuable gems. Steve, many, many thanks for being our guest today. And for everyone who's watching and listening, thank you so much for joining us. Until next time, bye-bye for now.